Vicki, you have our first question?
I sure do. Thank you, Chris. Our first question concerns the war on terror, and our first respondent will be Mr. Corker. This comes from John Mark Browder. Mr. Browder.
Thank you. The war on terror has changed from the pursuit of bin Laden to taking out Saddam Hussein. The focus now seems to be shifting toward other nations. Do you agree with the administration's course of action, pursuing Iran and North Korea because they might develop nuclear weapons?
I believe that the world has changed greatly since 9/11, and I think we saw elements of that all along the way. And I think that the war against terror is something that's going to be here for decades. And I think that we need to have people in Washington that are vigilant, that understand that we no longer fight armies where people are commanded by generals or countries, but people who don't even know each other sometimes wish to destroy our way of life. So I do believe that as a country, we should do everything we can. Everything from surveilling terrorists, everything from making sure that our men and women in uniform have all that they need, making sure that we support things like the Patriot Act, and make sure that we keep in balance, but always edge towards the side of keeping our people safe and secure. So I'm a strong supporter of making sure that we as a country do everything we can. And I know that after being a mayor of Chattanooga and seeing what happens to people when they're unsafe in our neighborhoods, that really nothing else matters unless people here in our country do feel safe and secure.
Over the past year, we have seen the situation in Iraq evolve into something that is not only far more difficult and far more complicated, but I believe call for a different set of tactics on the ground. This is probably the biggest difference between my opponent and I. He has stated over and over again that staying the course is the path we should follow. I disagree. I don't believe we can pull out of Iraq. If we do, the Iranians win. They have control of our large oil reserve. They're able to use Iraq as an incubator to train a new generation of terrorists. My plan is one that is supported by several in the Senate already, including many Republicans: John Warner, Olympia Snowe, Lindsey Graham, Dick Lugar, and the spearhead of it, a Democrat from Delaware, Joe Biden. What I hope to be able to do is to work with all of them. This is not a partisan issue. This issue is one that will require all of us to work together. I'm a believer that when we're united and we forge ahead, there's very little we can't accomplish. Our plan is to decentralize Iraq into 3 semi-autonomous regions: Sunni, Shia, Kurd. Give a central government the authority over the borders, and give them the authority to divide the oil revenue up in an equitable way. I believe we can bind all parties to the deal this way. In addition, we would ask some of the oil-rich Gulf states to help with a massive job creation program there in Iraq, to give the people hope and a future. I'm just a believer that the politics of hope always went out over the politics of destruction. We see it here in this race. We see it in America, and I believe it would evidence itself in Iraq if given the opportunity to work. Admittedly, this will be hard, but this whole proposition is a hard one. We're the United States of America, however, and there's very little, if anything, we can accomplish when we work together.
Mr. Corker, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, my opponent, too, in the Knoxville Sentinel, stated the words, "stay the course." Now, if that means being there until the Iraqi people can secure themselves, yes. But obviously, we need to be flexible. We need to do those things that military commanders on the ground and others tell us to do. We need to listen far more closely. I never felt like we had enough men on the ground in the first place, and I think that we're paying the price. But if we can't cause a country to come together in one, I know we can't do it dividing it up in 3. And just a matter... Okay, thank you.
Time is up. Vicki, you have another question, please?
We sure do, and we'll ask Mr. Ford to respond first to this. It concerns foreign oil and the environment, and for that we'll ask Alexander Feoktistov to tell us about it.
Our nation's dependence on oil as an energy source has resulted in environmental damage as well as entanglements with volatile and hostile foreign interests. What policies would you enact to curb the negative political and environmental consequences of our reliance on oil?
It's an excellent question, young fellow. How old are you?
21.
Your generation, I like to consider myself closer to him, Mr. Corker, than you. We got to live with the consequences of all this stuff. 2 things really quickly. 1, there's a model There's a model for this three-state solution, if I can just divulge for one moment, or diverge for one moment. It's called Bosnia and the Balkans. The Dayton Accords, which emerged from Ohio with the work of several of our leading diplomats here in America and around the globe, helped to create stability, less violence, and the opportunity for peace and a democratic way of life to emerge in that region of the world. Oil freedom and energy freedom is the second most important part of winning this war on terrorism. It's the most important long term, but the second most important short term, because we have to get our arms around what's happening in Iraq and Afghanistan today. I'm a believer that we can invest in coal gasification, nuclear energy. Even the good old farmers back where I'm come from in West Tennessee who grow soybeans and corn, can you imagine a better and stronger rural growth program than finding ways to ensure that their products could be integrated into the nation's energy supply? And as I said in my opening, if we travel this course, renewables included hydrogen and wind and solar. I met with the vice chair of Nissan not long ago, and he urged the U.S. government to provide more tax incentives to car makers to ensure that they indeed, too, could help produce a new generation of fuel-efficient cars. It's our future, and we must do it.
Mr. Corker, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. And even though we might not be the same age, I have daughters that are coming along that I care deeply, deeply about, I assure you, and I love them very much. And I want to make sure, I want to use the experience that I have here in Tennessee to make sure that future generations are not dependent on the Middle East for oil. I really believe that we as a country lose sight of tough issues. I know my opponent's been in Washington now for 10 years, and when the gas prices drop, it seems we lose sight of the energy issues that need to be dealt with here in our country. But I'm a strong supporter of biofuels. Our Tennessee farmers are 10th in the country in their ability to produce the products that actually create biofuels. But we need to do even better. We need to invest in research and enzymes to make those even more efficient, like other countries have been able to do. Strong supporter of clean coal gasification. I was just up at Eastman Chemical. They built a plant in 1983, and as close as we are to the coal fields, we are like the Saudi Arabia of coal. And we as a country really need to invest in the research so that these coal-fired electrical plants start using clean coal gasification to produce energy. When I was mayor of Chattanooga 3.5 years ago, I saw that our country had energy problems on the horizon. I went out on the West Coast and found somebody at the Ames NASA facility building a distributed model hydrogen fuel cell. Brought them to Chattanooga, rounded up some money. Today that fuel cell is actually producing power into the power grid in Chattanooga, and I think it's going to be commercially viable. When it is, Tennesseans are going to be part of solving our nation's energy problems. That's what I want to do in the United States Senate, is use bold ideas, not just when it's hot, not just when you're standing in front of a crisis, to make sure that we move ahead and cause ourselves to be energy independent. Thank you for the question.
30 seconds.
There's a big difference, though, right here. My opponent, whose party has been in charge now for 6 years, their relationship with the oil industry in this country, undeniable. Even my opponent's relationship, the chair of his campaign, the head of an oil company out of Knoxville. I have nothing against him or his company, but our future depends on an honest, sincere, and serious effort to pursue new energy sources. No nation in the history of the world has ever fought a war trying to pay for both sides of the war at the same time and won. We won't win it either.
Time's up. Vicki?